We're doing it.
Doing it. So, good evening, everyone. How you doing, Scott? I think we should be live now, or we will be in a minute. We'll give it a minute to get going,
Okay.
and we'll give it a minute for people to hop in. Yeah, okay, I see it. So now let me just do one thing before we get started, which is, okay, that actually worked. Okay, good.
We're doing
Great.
it. We're doing
We're
it.
we're live. Sorry about that, folks. I am not an interviewer, but anyway, here we are. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Stein. For those of you who don't know me, welcome to a special edition of the Freaks Night In on a Monday night, and hopefully you know my guest here, Scott Metzger. Say hi,
Hello.
Scott. I'll let Scott do most of the talking tonight. Hopefully we'll have a nice chat, maybe some songs. But before we get started, I just want to let you know about the Freaks Action Network. Freaks Action Network is a 501c3. We were started in 2017, kind of spun off of the NYC Freaks group. And we are dedicated to making positive change in the world with the power of positive energy of live music. And right now we're putting our efforts towards a musicians relief fund, which is helping donating grants to New York City musicians who are kind of in need right now. We've actually given out $20,000 in grants, and we're continuing to do it as long as we have to. And unfortunately, we still have to do it. So please read more about that. Go to Freaks Action Network on Facebook, the link in the page. And if you can, if you're able to donate a little bit, that money go a long way to helping people out. So we'll talk a little bit about the pandemic coming out. But for now, Scott, talking about the NYC Freaks Ball. For those of you who don't know, Scott has probably played all of them, all but a couple, more or less. So when I say Freaks Ball, like what comes to mind? What's the
Oh man.
so give us your lowdown.
Well, there's so many memories. I mean, I'm not sure. Is there some sort of database? I'm not sure how many I've played, but I know it's around 18, I
So
guess.
around 18. Let's, down the road, it'll be like, your memory, things get inflated in your memory over time. So you'll have played all 100 Freaks Ball, even when there's only 25 of them. That's sort of the way we should think about it. You
I
just,
know it turned into a
oh, I
fishing.
played, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I've got to be. Nobody's played more freaks balls than I have, right?
No one's been as ballsy as you have,
It's
Scott.
impossible. Yeah, it's impossible. Well, the timing has always worked out because I tour a lot, and there have been a few freaks balls that we I feel like that we've sort of like massaged some scheduling things to make it work. I remember there was one at Southpaw, which was a club here in Brooklyn, just a few blocks away from where I live. Now it's like a kids study center, um, and I smile to myself every time I walk by, knowing what went down in that place. When you look in the window and you see kids like playing patty cake, and it's like the the unpure things that I saw happen in that club. Very proud to have been a part of it. But
If these walls could talk, right? Yeah.
yeah, totally. Parents would be there in 2 seconds to get their kids out of there. But I remember one. Now I don't remember what year it was. It had to have been about 2012 or 11 or 12, I guess, where I was going to do a tour of Japan, starting on the same night that we wanted to do the Freaks Ball that year, and I was so dedicated. I had just started playing with the guy that I was meeting in Japan, Ginger from the Wild Hearts, and we were going to do a duo tour there. But I was so hell bent on doing yet another Freaks Ball uh, that I had him do the first gig in Tokyo by himself. We played at Southpaw, and I literally left the stage and grabbed this huge suitcase that I had brought to the gig with me, hailed a cab, and went right to JFK and got on a plane to Japan. And there was no night off that time. I like got to Tokyo and same day went and did the gig.
It's not like you're going to Chicago, you're going to Tokyo. I mean, it's
We're going to Chicago. Yeah, right. No, it's a little different over there, and that was a hell of a long flight, and it was. But that's one that I always remember. I have actually like a picture in my mind of sort of saying goodbye to everybody, and I felt like it was like, the scene like when like Rudy's going in for like the big game, and everybody's like, yeah, everybody's cheering him on. It
Yeah,
felt like that. They're like, go to Japan, go do it.
that's about as rock and roll as it gets, man.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. There is a dark side to that story a little bit. That about a week and a half later, that tour, then we went straight from Japan to England, and we were doing like 2 weeks in England. And the very first night in England, we played at London, and somebody broke into the car while we were on, because there were only two of us, so we were traveling around in a Subaru, and somebody broke into the car and they stole only my suitcase. The guy not from England. And I not only did I have a bunch of awesome T-shirts that I had just gotten in Japan that I loved, that are totally irreplaceable. I also had my new Freaks Ball shirt that was given to me that night at the Freaks Ball, which is like,
Yeah, come on.
a sentimental thing.
I'm wearing my fixed ball shirt tonight, but not that one.
Yeah, that's a different one.
That's a different one.
This one was red, and I think it had a skull on it.
Yeah, yeah, I know
It was
exactly
like
what you're talking about.
A New Orleans kind of theme. I forget. I think the Bustle played first. I think somebody was playing after us. But anyway, that's just one of many, Freaks Ball memories.
That's a great story. I love that story. I think about the Freaks Ball. So the first time you played, I think, was 2003 with Rana. This year you played with Showdown Kids. That's to me like that's the history of Scott Metzger, is the history of the Freaks Ball, right? I mean, we've got Rana, we've got Bustle, we've got, of course, J-Rad, and then we've got some onesie twosie kind of gigs in there as well. So
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
how do you think, like, how does your outlook of, you think about those bands back in the, and now what you do now, like how does your outlook change over the year? How's your sort of like when you're getting into a band or forming a band or deciding to play, how has that changed over those years?
Well, man, it's a very luxurious position to be in, because most musicians, if they have a new project, they don't have somewhere where they can take it to like road test it to a crowd of people that are going to be into checking out like literally whatever it is, because you can't get much different from like Rana to the Showdown Kids.
Nope.
There's no common ground at all. It's a double-sided coin with me, that I'm into so many different things and I have trouble just deciding on one. But
Has
man,
that changed? Has that changed over the years? Like, so now you're doing, like, you got this gypsy jazz thing. Wolf was kind of a thing for a while, which had a very specific flavor. Is it kind of just random, or is there sort of been something that's driven you towards one thing, or has it just been swaying back and forth?
all of it is always with it's sort of it probably sounds weird, but it's always kind of movie inspired.
Oh
Like
yeah,
soundtrack, I'm always, because I love movies. Like I'm like very into watching movies and going to movie theaters when that was a thing. Um, and soundtrack music is very often, I'll go see a movie like in like Wolf. The whole thing was Death Proof, the Quentin Tarantino movie.
really?
It's got like
That,
this kind of like, it takes place in Austin, so it's got this like Southwest kind of, you know country-ish vibe to it the whole time. And there's some music in there that's like that kind of, that was kind of in the same ballpark of what we were doing. And I mean, the same thing with Showdown Kids. I mean, please, somebody put us on a soundtrack. There's
yeah, really. Come on.
perfect soundtrack music. I always think that like really good, the music that I love would always, I always think, God, I would love to see this in a movie. Any of stuff that we all enjoy.
Right on. All right. So for all the aspiring directors out here, you've got your music director here.
All me. Yeah.
um, what about Danger Boots? Is that when's that going to play again? You said, huh? That was a topic for discussion.
That just came up the other day because it was my birthday a while, like last week, and Russo did a hashtag Danger Boots Forever, which I felt it. It took me
Yeah.
back.
Right.
And it's really funny. I was trying to relearn a Danger Boots song for tonight, and I can't remember two of the lines. I've got the whole song except for two lines. Danger Boots was a band that it was just me and Russo, just a duo, and the full name of the band was Danger Boots, songs about drinking, fighting, and fucking.
Yeah, right.
And it would usually get pretty loose. And I played guitar, and Joe um, played drums, and we both sang. And Joe actually played a guitar solo. It's the only time I've seen Joe play guitar in public. We did one gig where he played on one of the Rocks Off boats, which was probably a Freaks related event. Songs about drinking, fighting, and fucking.
Yep. Sorry about that. So can you play us something now? That something with a Danger Boots song minus two lines, or another song about drinking, fighting, or fucking, or
Yeah, I could do that. You know what? We'll drop the two lines, and I'll kind of see if maybe I can pull it off. Maybe you won't even notice. Because it really is good. I was reminded. I was like, man, this song.
that was a band, man. Yeah.
That was a thing. That was definitely a thing. I mean, I remember playing at the Knitting Factory on Leonard Street on New Year's Eve, opening for. It was like Brownstein from the Disco Bis. It was like some project, some super group, probably put together by Jake Sufnerowski.
Probably.
And his big idea was like, we'll have the band play on the night of January 1st. Which is a thing. That's a night to play a gig.
It is one of the 365 for sure.
But I'll tell you, nobody looked their best when they showed up for that gig. I mean, that was rough. Everybody was dragging themselves through it. Let me see if I can do it. This is I don't know this. The song title is the words that I can't remember. So I don't know what it's called, but it's a good one, and it's in A. I'm tired of all your lying. I'm tired of trying to keep my cool. And I think you know me well enough to know mama didn't raise no fool. I've never liked your family. I've always hated all of your friends. And you ask me if we got a future. Well, honey, that all depends. I'm at the end of my rope. You better take me serious. I'm at the end of my rope. Make a man delirious. That I was in trouble when we said our very first hellos. But you looked so goddamn perfect in those fishnets and clear stilettos. You smelled like peaches and whiskey, but you kissed like peaches and cream. The way you dance, I never stood a chance. You were the redneck of my dreams. I'm at the end of my rope. Better take me serious. I'm at the end of my rope. Make a man delirious.
Awesome. That was you couldn't even tell. That was like, and that brought me back as well. I'm like, yeah, once you started playing, I was like, I definitely remember this song. I remember one. I don't think it was at that January 1st show, but there there were other ones. That was
Yeah,
good.
well, not many were at that January. Even those that were there weren't there. But
Yeah.
well, the big one was "Go Home Hippie," right? I mean, that was
That
like
was
the
the one.
deja vu.
That
That
was
was the
that's the one.
song.
That's the one that makes me laugh. I mean, it made me laugh then, and I think every day since since that song went on the shelf, it's made me laugh even more thinking about it. Uh,
I know you brought it up. You're like the only human that's brought it up over the years, and I
yeah,
appreciate it every time.
that yeah. I don't know if there's a recording out there. Go home, hippie. You should go out and seek it. I think yeah, it's the one with the lyric.
Yeah,
No, I wasn't influenced by Steely Dan. No, I don't want to sit in with your band. I mean, this is uh,
so
beautiful.
that's funny. It was a time.
All right, so let's change gears here and talk a little bit about this crazy situation we're in and why we're not at a show and we're on Zoom right now. So when all this shit went down as a musician, what was your perspective as sort of we rolled into early March and this sort of tidal wave of shit came at us?
Yeah, well, my timeline, everybody's got their story as to like where they were or whatever as this went down. My personal timeline was that we did the shows. JRAD was at the Capitol Theater at the very end of March, or excuse me, the very end of February, for 3 nights, and I had a couple of days off, and then I went out for 10 nights in a row with Circles Around the Sun, which is basically the first time that I was touring with them. And we did all the Northeast. We did 2 nights at the Brooklyn Bowl. Um, we kind of we started down and we went up. We started in Baltimore, went all the way up to like Vermont, and then back down to Charlottesville, Virginia in 10 days. And while we were on those 10 days, it was kind of like, I feel like at the beginning of those 10 days, it was something that we were all sort of like joking about and sort of dismissing and being like, everybody, anytime anybody would like sneeze or something, everybody would be like, oh, coronavirus, and it was like real cute. And by the end of that, everybody was like, yo, we're not hugging goodbye. You know, like people were, I remember there was a guy that got really angry, classic foreshadowing, but like in Virginia, because I wouldn't give him a hug after the gig, just like a random
Right,
guy who had been at the show. He was waiting outside. And he's like, bro, like it was great. And that's very nice. I certainly appreciate it. And I sort of said that. I was like, yo, man, I'm good. Like, why don't we just do one of these, the elbow thing? And he's like, are you fucking kidding me?
yeah, it's amazing how
And
it's like that fast. It really was.
yeah, I mean, it was literally 10 days because when JRAD said goodbye, when we wrapped up those 3 nights, it was not even on the radar that it could become a real thing. So, and then you're talking about 12 days later or something. So then when I really saw it, so that was a thing. And then when I really saw it was on the next day on the flight home from Charlottesville, the airport was a situation. Like it was tense. Um, Somebody started coughing on the plane and the people around them like hit the buzzer for the flight attendant and like people were yelling at the flight attendant to get them away from them. I mean, it was like out of a
Oh
movie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's outbreak
Yeah.
shit. Yeah,
And then I came home, and JRAD was scheduled to go to the Midwest 2 days later, and we had our sitting right here. We had our very first conference call that that band has ever had in the 6 years, whatever we've been doing it. And we were like, this is getting pretty real. Like, what should we do? Yeah, because things were starting to get canceled, but not everything was getting canceled.
yeah.
So it was kind of like, what are we going to do? And we decided we'll sleep on it. And the next morning we did another conference call and we decided as a band it would be best to call off those 3 shows. And then it was the next day. I remember that because I remember seeing that the Humphreys guys on Instagram, the Humphreys guys were like getting on planes to go to gigs and stuff. And in like later that day, they were like, yeah, we're coming home. Like
Yeah.
this isn't, nothing was happening. And I think maybe there was like one or two more shows because the day that I got home, or it was the Allman Brothers were at the Garden, and I remember a lot of people were kind of like, "Is that cool? I don't know."
Yeah, that was me. That was a lot
But
of people. that was
Yeah,
yeah.
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
have gone to that. Yeah.
yeah, I would, I was like, I'm not going to go. And then I was like, all right, and then I kind of was in the back of your mind, like, this might be the last one for a while. And then we went, and I talked to a lot of people about it, and you got home and you're just like, that was just a bad idea. And just, get home. And I never had that. You get home and you're just like, that was just bad idea. And then it was like the next day NBA shut down and that was it. It was like March 11th and that was the end. And that was crazy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, and it's such a shame because the Allman Brothers thing was such a big deal that so many people were looking forward to it for so long. But I think maybe some people, had second thoughts after it. But it is what it is. I mean, we're still in totally uncharted territory. But in those days, it was like, what the fuck does anybody do? Like, how do we handle this? And then just to, put answer the rest of the question, what it looked like here for like a musician was for about 3 or 4 weeks. Every day the phone would ring and it would be somebody from management from either, because I had a lot of stuff on the books that I was going to do with Circles Around the Sun this year. So either from them or from the JRAD guys. And it'd be like, okay, those 5 gigs that we had, okay, we're going to move those to October. Everything was getting pushed back to the fall. And then there was like this quiet time, like maybe, I mean, there was nothing quiet about it here in New York, but, in terms of the business and touring stuff, the calls died down. And then the calls started up again, like maybe in August or June, I guess, where it was like, okay, are you available February 2021? Because we're going to move those dates that we moved to October back to there. And then eventually the phone just like stops ringing because like nobody know, we
Yeah.
just don't know where things are at.
No, I mean, there's optimism and then there's, yeah. So
Yeah,
what,
there's optimism and there's realism. I mean, I feel
yeah, exactly.
obligated to say too. I mean, as a musician, anyone that's in this business, this is a tough enough business as it is when things are running smoothly. Like I lived in a 4 flight walk up for 5 years, and I would when I was playing in the city all the time, and I'd carry my amp and guitar up and down that 4 flights like 4 to 5 nights a week for like $60. I mean, like I was like busting my ass for so many years, and so many people I know do that, and they're like super talented and super hardworking and want to work and black. But this situation is I'm not one to complain and I'm not one to whine about things, but we are at the mercy of everybody working together on this and like doing the things that you need to do, like wearing masks and social distancing and not having gatherings at the holidays, because that's what's going to bring stuff back eventually.
100%. You heard it here. Scott's telling you to put a damn mask on.
That's my PSA for the night. Yeah, I'm saying put the fucking mask on because
Put the fucking
it's
mask on.
you're affecting a lot of people by not doing it. So that's it.
Yeah, this is all well and good, but we'd love to go see you play guitar on a stage. So what do you been doing? I actually have been in these outdoor shows in New York, and I've seen a few, and it's been great. And I saw one with Jim Campolongo, who I know and he said he was there was our first gig back, and he said, I've been talking to some of my musician friends, and none of us are practicing. I just want you to know that none of us are practicing, which I can't believe is true. So how have you been? What's the silver lining? How have you been making the most of your time?
I was practicing at first. I dove into the practice. I was very lucky. I got like an ad campaign soundtrack thing in March. So I was here like making music that'll be like in a Pizza Hut commercial or something, like in
Oh,
March
really?
when like the world was like burning, and it just felt like everything was going crazy. So that kept me busy then. And then I actually started taking some guitar lessons because I've never had the time to do that in the last decade and a half. So I contacted Julian Lodge, who's an incredible guitarist.
Yeah.
He'll be on the Mount Rushmore of jazz guitarists. Uh, and he's also a great, great educator. He's a very inspiring guy. Um, and I took a lesson with him, and he gave me some stuff that I could spend 5 years working on. It was like the best. Yeah, it was really nice. It was like I was in high school again. I was like I was like taping the lesson so I can go back and listen to it later, and I worked
Yeah,
on stuff.
that's awesome. Yeah, actually, it was one of the things I wanted to ask you about Julian Lodge. That's the one thing you have in common with the Freaks is we're all big Julian Lodge fans. So what is it about, what were the things that he kind of showed you? Was it mostly technical or was it philosophical or
Yeah, philosophical. I mean, I'm not that interested anymore in like learning a new scale or
right?
something. I'm more interested in conceptual things like what got somebody. I mean, I really nerd out too. Well, we watched him together, you and I, with Nels
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At LPR.
before, and I had my iPhone. I taped that gig on my iPhone, and he did something on that gig in like the first 4 minutes, and I I I mean, it just ruined the rest of the gig for me.
Right. It renders you done.
That was
Yes.
it. Like I could have left. I got my money's worth, 4 minutes in. And I told him that, and I played what he had, I played back that part, and I was like, "What is that, man?" And it was just talking more about. I don't really know how to describe it, but sort of like body awareness while you're playing. There's a thing called the Alexander technique that he's very, very big on, which is essentially you're constantly aware of what's going on with your muscles and your joints and keeping your body relaxed while you're doing what looks like from the outside looking in really rigorous things. Because this thing that he played, it was like, I mean, it was crazy. It was like this whole thing, but he couldn't have looked like more like Zen. And he was like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm actually just like thinking about my shoulders when I play that." Like, oh god, like this is one of those things I'm gonna have to pretend that I understand. I'm gonna be like, "Oh yeah, totally." Totally.
That's amazing. Well, that's good. Yeah. There's the commercial for the Julian Lodge method there. I think now we can all.
That's right. That's a glowing review. It'll change. Yeah, yeah.
So any like new projects you're thinking about, anything like that that come up over where you're like interacting with people besides the Julian?
Yeah, well, I mean, like any musician, we've had to. It's like you hear that term everywhere, pivot. We've had to pivot. These unprecedented times. So I very quickly scrambled, and I've always been sort of an anti-recording at home guy, and that's changed totally in the last bunch of months. And now I've got a legit recording situation here at home, and I've had quite a few people, bands and individuals who have recordings, get in touch with me and ask me, can you put down a solo on this um, or a rhythm track on that, and that has actually kept me really busy. Knock on wood. I was recording all day today, um, working on a solo record as well because that's something that I'm hell bent on getting done in the next year. Um, so there's been that, and I mean, really, this year, man, like there's just so many things. If I ever thought the sentence "I've got a green screen and a lighting rig set up in my bedroom" was going to come out of my mouth this year, I mean, what the hell? But that's exactly what's happening. I'm shooting a like video project with Circles Around the Sun where we're doing it remotely. So we're all recording our parts and then we're videotaping ourselves playing the parts and then we're going to edit it all together so that we look like we're playing on Venus or something, you know.
You are circling around the sun. Yeah, that sounds good, man. That's a lot of stuff, man. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear it. And um,
Yeah.
we'll be looking forward to all of that stuff.
No, we're very,
Um,
very lucky. We're very grateful to be as busy as we are, you know.
what about non-musical things? You a sourdough guy, sourdough starter, jigsaw puzzle, new ferret, any
No ferret. Although that's maybe that's a good idea. Katie's like the sourdough queen, and she makes it's unanimous. It's unanimous reviews because we've been taking it to all of our neighbors. You know, because when you make it, apparent, I don't know the first thing about it, but when you make it, you have to make 2 loaves of the sourdough. So the way she does it anyway. So we have one, and then we take the other to some lucky couple in the neighborhood. And there have been some things. I mean, again, man, just add it to the list of like, didn't see it coming in 2020. I'm like a runner now.
Hunter, me too. I've been on the treadmill every other day. Yeah. What the hell?
It's trending. um, Me and Tony Leone, the drummer from
Yeah.
Robinson's Brotherhood, we both live in the same neighborhood. And he's like I didn't know this about him. We played in Anders Osborne's band together for 2.5 years or something, 2 years. And I never knew this, but he's like run a few marathons in his life. I mean, he's got like, he's like, hey man, do you want to run around Prospect Park with me one day? I was like, oh yeah, sure, And I showed up and he's got like reflectors
Oh,
on. I mean, like all the gear. And we've been running, like we're doing it. Me and Jeff from the Freaks List went out the other day too, because he's been running.
yeah.
So there's been that, and I've been going to driving ranges. I go over to Chelsea Piers and hit golf balls.
You're an athlete. Who knew it?
I'm an athlete now.
But this is probably part of the Julian Lodge, getting in touch with your muscles, the driving range. There's probably something there, right? I think I'm.
There's definitely I have said that many times to Katie. Yeah, there's definitely a connection. Because it's like, I mean, I thought about it on the JRAD gig because you know, when you're at mile 8 running, that's a long time. Like, that's like an hour and change of running. And you kind of have to get in touch. Your mind is like, oh my God, dude, we're done, Like, let's just stop. You did enough for the day. But you can't, if you want to get the 9 miles, you got to keep going. And I had that exact thought at JRAD last week when we played at the Cap, the streaming shows, because man, to not have done a gig in 8 months and then to get up and do 3 nights of JRAD is like, it's a shock to the system. That third set, man, I looked around, we were all feeling it. It was like, oh my God, like what time is it? Like, how far do we have? How much longer do we gotta go?
How were those gigs? How was that? I'm sure people would like to hear, like, what was it like playing again after all that time, playing without a crowd? Like, was it, I'm sure it was weird. How was it weird? How was it same?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were joking about it. We're all guys that have played to plenty of empty clubs, over the years. But this was different. It was great. I mean, I loved, Joe had the vision of setting up. I don't know if you saw it, but we set up in the round with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
with the curtains closed, and that felt really nice. It felt like really intimate. You would have never known that we were in the Cap. There's like this huge 3,000 person room on the other side of that thing. It sounded great in there. Like it just felt like playing in a rehearsal space. And it was kind of nice when they opened up the curtains and we did the second 2 sets with the curtains open. That was cool. A little weird, but cool. It was a trip to be in there. There were only like 8 people or 9 people, including the band, in the building at any time. Which was like that was a thing, and it was very like I went walking around the lobby and like went down to one of the bathrooms in the basement at one point. It was like, yeah, nobody's been in here for 7 months for sure. Like it
Yeah.
kind of felt like a Saw movie, in the basement. I was like, oh shit. Just waiting for like the little clown on the tricycle to come riding.
Yeah, there you go. That's the movie you can make the soundtrack for, is the murder in the Cap.
Good. That's good. That's good. But it was great to be back, and like Shapiro came by, and like so great to have that crew. I mean, all of us, the 5 guys in the band, and Shapiro, and the guys, some of the guys on the crew at the Capitol Theater, and Aaron, our monitor guy, and Evan, our tech. I mean, we've been through a lot of stuff together, and nothing like this. I mean, this is, you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh yeah, we've seen it all. We've
Right.
been in this for 20 years. Like we're fucking, we are not rookies. Like check out the rookies coming in. Like, we'll have to break them in. This was like, We're in some uncharted territory, man. Yeah.
All right, so I've actually got some questions from some other. So I took some questions from the Freaks list and also from Facebook. And if you have a question, drop it in the comments. We'll try to get to it. So here's one related to the pandemic. So if say tomorrow this thing just ended, and they're like, all right, shows are back on.
Mhm.
What's who are you calling to play? Where are you going to play? What's the thing that you'd be like, oh, this is where I'm gonna get in front of a crowd with this band, this spot, this what's the scene?
Well, I mean, getting back to the JRAD thing, just because we had we have, it's like such a great momentum and it's such an exciting thing to be a part of. Um, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. The very next thing though, man, I was so excited to do so many gigs, to have been asked to play with Circles Around the Sun as much as I was. Obviously god awful circumstances, unimaginable, and I would much rather just be going to see them play, with my friend
Of course.
playing guitar. But like I really took that very seriously, that they would, yeah, I guess honor me with that opportunity to play with them a bunch this year. And I mean, we did 10 nights at the beginning of the year, and I saw that on the calendar and I was like, man, 10 nights in a row. I haven't done that for a while. We got to the end of the 10 nights and I was like, I'm ready to go another 10. No problem. And that's such a good, that speaks
Yeah, it's
volume
gotta be, especially
about,
yeah, at this point in your career for sure. I'm sure that's not a common feeling.
right, right. So I guess if I'm understanding the question correctly, those two
Yeah,
projects.
that's no, yeah, that's good. All right, I got one more. There was one more, and then maybe we'll get another song out of you here. So this is a were you an Eddie Van Halen guy? Is that any influence? Was that what's your comment on Eddie?
Certainly an appreciator, especially as I've gotten older. I've realized just how mind blowing what he did on the guitar was. And then when you put it into context that no one had ever done it before, that's incredible. Was I a fan? Not, I never, you know, I never had the poster on my wall or anything.
Right.
I feel
You
like I
didn't have
missed it a little bit. I think that I was just a little too young. Like that was more my friend's older brothers
yeah.
bands, and I had what, Poison? No, it was, we were more like heavy metal guys as opposed to, I guess, I don't know, what is Van Halen, like hard rock? I don't know, what is it?
It's in between. Yeah, it's a tweener. I think that's why they were so. Yeah, I think it's amazing though. You're right. Like a couple years can make a huge difference, right? If you're this age when that album came out, it meant one thing to you, and if you weren't, you're a couple years too younger. Like it really can. I mean, it's amazing with a lot of bands. I think. I think it's
Yeah. Well, it was also like you want your own thing when you're that age. You want
right.
your band, and I remember Kenny and Craig Sheets, who was my best friend Doug's older brothers. They were like all about Van Halen, and we were like, well, we're down with Anthrax, and like that's like old guy music, like. Um, but like I said, as I've gotten older, I mean, it's like shocking what that guy did. The way I really, just like, again, Mount Rushmore type guitar player.
Can we get another song out of you?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that's cool about New York City, being a musician in New York City, is that there's all sorts of like amazing and legendary guys who are still here that you can get access to, because you can get in touch with these people. And one of the guys that I fell in with in, I don't know, 2012 or so, I played in his band, was Jim Keller, who's still in New York City. And he, back in the day, was Tommy Two Tone. And he wrote 8675309.
That's a thing. All right.
Dude, well, his bands though, he has amazing taste. He did it too. He like wrote a hit and like he's kind of good. Like he's set, and he can treat his bands really well. And his bands were like the best. When I started playing around town, like meeting guys like Campolongo and this, that, and the other, I was like, man, Keller's band is the model. Like that's where you want to get to. And after a couple of years of slugging it out in the trenches, I was in the band playing with guys like, be like me and I don't know, Lunsell and Dan Reeser and John Coward and just like all these guys that are sort of legends in the New York scene.
New York, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean they're like amazing and just world class, best in the world. Anyway, then me and Jim did a duo tour opening for Nick Lowe, um, all around Long Island in theaters in Long Island in like 2013. And that tour, like, I just couldn't believe that I wasn't more down with Nick Lowe before that. I
Right,
thought the guy was, I mean, the guy blew my mind every night. So anyway, I learned a bunch of Nick Lowe songs after that, and I love this one.
right on.
You don't know it, but I've made my mind up. You'll wind up in my arms. But first, I've got to break down your resistance to my charms. Yes, darling, I know it won't be easy, but I won't rest until I find a way. 'Cause everybody knows that Rome wasn't built in a day. How I'll make it happen, I'm not certain. I'm working on a plan. Once I get in tight, you believe that I'm your man. You don't know it yet, but you'll surrender when I make my play. 'Cause everybody knows that Rome wasn't built in a day. I'll offer you protection, 24-hour love and affection, but it'll take time to make it right. Just look at what the Pharaoh did when he built those pyramids. Everybody knows that didn't spring up overnight. There'll be a celebration and a silver band will play. 'Cause everybody knows that Rome wasn't built in a day. All of your protection, 24-hour love and affection. It'll take time to make it right. Look what the Pharaoh did when he built those pyramids. Everybody knows that didn't spring up overnight. There'll be a celebration and a silver band will play. 'Cause everybody knows that Rome wasn't built in a day. Rome wasn't built in a day.
That was great. I love that song. So good.
Yeah, that's a great song. I messed it up in the middle. It's funny. you were talking about like practicing and stuff. I went to Nels Klein hit me up the other day, and we went to a guitar shop together, like just a few days ago. And I picked him up in my car, masked and everything, and we drove over there, and we were both picking up guitars, and we were both like, "Don't listen, man. It's like I'm not in I'm not gig ready right now."
Right. It's like I yeah. Don't look at me, I have my makeup on. Right.
So,
So yeah, just me and Nels Klein were hanging out the other day. You're doing a wonderful job dropping some great names. Are there? I know you played with some great people. Is there anyone? Maybe it's Nels, maybe someone else, where you're on stage and you kind of look over and you're like, I can't fucking believe I'm playing with that person right now. Like,
I've been very unbelievably fortunate, honestly. Like when I look back at the highlight reel, I mean, I guess one that comes to mind. Now this is a good name drop. Schofield. Phil Lesh called me last year. Phil Lesh called me to play in Phil and Friends out at Terrapin for a couple of nights, and I was like, "Well, who's going to be in the band?" He's like, "Oh, it'll be Tony Leone and Jason Crosby," and thinking you and John Schofield on guitars. And I was like, "Yo, I'm on my way to the airport like right now." Because Schofield for me is he's one of the big ones, and yeah, being on stage with him was amazing. The gigs were incredible, but I'll tell you, the hang, which I've found with most of the people that I sort of have this like, holy shit, I can't believe I get to play with this person experience. Um, the offstage hang was like the most life fulfilling, inspiring thing. Like, just the recap is like of that particular thing. Was me and John were on the same flight, and we went to baggage. And we had met, but like really briefly before this, like we weren't. I don't know if he knew who I was, even though I certainly knew who he was. So we're like in the Uber on the way to the hotel, and we get there, and he's like, "Man, I'm hungry. You want to try and find like an Italian place?" It's like 9:30 at night. He's like, "Oh, I want some Italian. You want to find it?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we go out, and then he like we closed the restaurant down. Tony Leone, who was playing drums, he came and met us. And I mean, it was just like, I wish I had a picture of me and Tony's face. He's sitting there talking about Dave Holland and, Elvin Jones. Eventually he got to the Miles stories like a
right,
couple.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, he got there like on the third day. But so then, like, really, this is like one of the most amazing life memories I will have. I mean, it's like such highlight reel material. Um, then we exchanged numbers, and I woke up the next morning. He's like, and he texted me. Schofield texted me, and he's like, "I mean, I don't know if you're a coffee guy, but if you want to hit the Bucks, let's do it." So to say, yeah, so we went and we got Tony, and the three of us went and we had coffee for like such a long time. Like we had like this really long coffee, just like shooting the shit. And we walked back to the hotel, and he's like, "Man, I'm a little rusty on these songs. Do you want to bring your guitar over to my hotel room, and we'll just run everything down with like no amps? We're just like sitting there, you know, like with John Scofield, like." And,
playing dead songs with John Schofield in a hotel room. This is like the bizarro bingo, huh?
oh man, yeah, right. It's like, how did this happen? And then we went and we did the gig, and the gig was like amazing. Like he played some stuff. There were definitely some moments where I was like, wow, this is like, he's like ripping a hole in the space-time continuum, right? Sometimes you see guys, the same thing happened when I played with Nels a few months later. Um, we did an all improvised gig with me and Medeski and Billy Martin and Nels. The four of us played. And I had the same experience where you just sort of watch him and you're like, well, there he goes. Like, that's why the guy's a legend on that level. Like, there he goes, it's like just going off. But Schofield, like I'm saying, those days of hanging out and just the warmness and he totally treated everybody that he was playing with like a complete equal. Like almost like suspiciously. So, it was just like,
Right.
dude, you're like, fucking huge deal, but he was just so down to earth and just like wanted to make the hang and man, amazing. But like I said, I mean, there's just so many people that I've gotten the chance to play with that sometimes I just can't believe it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also love that Phil Lesh somehow made that. I feel like to sort of he's the somehow the orchestrator, behind the scenes somehow made that scene happen for you, even though he wasn't, directly involved. Kind of.
Yeah, well, he's another. Yeah, I mean, he's got a vision, and he's another one. Like after I did my first couple of gigs with Phil, I decided, man, I will never complain about anything, in terms of like being a working musician
Yeah,
or playing too long or anything, because that guy, he's up there for 3 hours a night out of Terrapin. They play for so long out there, like 3 hours, and he is like in it on the very last tune. He's not phoning it in, he's like
yeah.
really
He's probably
playing.
never phoned it in. Yeah.
He's
Uh,
badass. He's a badass.
all right, that's awesome. That's good. I realize this is what doing a podcast is like. So I should probably say that, at least plug one more time that we're here with the Freaks Action Network. My name is Aaron Stein, and we are talking with Scott Metzger, obviously, having a nice chat. And I would just wanted to remind everyone that we are raising funds for our Musicians Relief Fund. So we talked about the pandemic earlier and musicians not being able to get gigs. And so FAN has been giving out grants. We've given out $20,000 in grants, and we're continuing to do so. So if you can give, please do. And if you can't, that's fine too. But we're going to continue to do that as long as we have to. And hopefully it won't be too long, but we'll see how things go. Let's see, we're getting towards the end here. So let me like what we did it. You did a nice little plug for Freaks Action Network, and you talked about the rooms in New York. Kind of we got it all, and so this sort of what's the room for you that you've played? What's the room where you're like, I love to go see a show there? What's the room where you're like, that's on my bucket list? What are those?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. Um, I want to show you something,
All
but I
right,
have to like leave the screen.
okay,
It's like right here. Yeah.
okay.
It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. We'll pause here for station
So,
identification. Here, yeah.
so, um, so before I show you this too, I just want to get in. I know that the clock's ticking, but
No, no.
I
I mean,
just
we
want to
can keep
say that
going.
what you guys are doing, is with the Freaks Action Network and the Musician Relief Fund is like so good life karma thing and so appreciated by so many people because we have all had everybody's lost a live music experience for now, and I know how much this community that experience is at the center of a lot of people's lives, social lives and entertainment lives and just like inspiration, just all of the whole checklist, right?
The whole checklist.
And I know how tough that is. And us on the other side of it, you know, we're staring down another year of touring and working and trying to make it. And I mean, I've tried to actually do the math. I think I've lost about eight. I'm not making it about me, but just to give you an idea of like how serious it is for musicians. I think 80% of my income ish, 75 just gone, like, and that is, it's hard to wrap your head around,
Yeah,
and
it's yeah,
we're lucky that we're in a position where we're sort of like, okay, and we can stay calm and everything, but not everybody is. And man, anything, you know, going online, buying bands merch, the band camp days have been huge for a lot of people, just like anything people can do to support, and relief funds like this are making and breaking people's lives, like no
yeah,
exaggeration.
absolutely. I should also add that if you are a New York City musician or you know any that the application is very easy, and I hope that people spread the word about it. And yeah, I mean it's to us, freaks list and the people tuning in, it's been tough. And when we had the applications coming in, and it's just like we're glad the word's getting out there, but it really hurts us. And yeah, it is. It's religion to party, the whole thing, all those points in between, and it's been tough. So yeah, what we do when we can, and we appreciate the help, and I'm glad it's making a little bit of difference.
Definitely is. Definitely is.
What's the picture you got there? What's
Okay, so Rana played at CBGB's for New Year's Eve a bunch of years. I think we did it 3 times or so. I think we played CB's, the original CB's, not the gallery, which was nice, but it's not the same. I mean, I was floored because I'm a big, 70s punk rock fan. So when we played there. So anyway, we played there a bunch of times, and then eventually Relics decided to run an article about bands from then and now. I think that's what it was called. The article was called Then and Now. And they decided to have the Talking Heads um, rhythm section come and hang out with Rana for a day. And we did a photo shoot at CBGB's. And I think it was in the magazine. But this picture, I don't know if you can see it, but that's a pretty good view of it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's Rana. That's the four of us at CB's with Tina Weymouth from
That's,
uh, from the Talking Heads.
yeah, that's an amazing photo. That's so great.
I remember that afternoon like it was like last week. Because for me, being like sort of like rock and roll guy,
Yeah, that's
you
amazing.
know, like having lived now in the city for 19 years, to be able to say that I headlined the original CB's a
David
bunch of
Davis.
times.
Yeah. I think one of the first times I saw, not the first time, but definitely one of the first times I saw you was at CBGB's. Not on New Year's though, but
Yeah.
that was a that was a good fit for you guys. That was definitely like
It was a good fit. I remember the first time Ron played there and somebody stage dove. Like, I don't think it was the first time that we played there, but I remember when somebody dove off the stage. It didn't happen much, but I remember thinking, like, we've made it. Like, this is it. Like, I'm living the dream.
uh, there are
But
actually you can go on YouTube and there's some videos of you guys playing it. It looks like it's like closed circuit, and you can see young Scott Metzger, the
yeah,
who would be the guy who would be psyched to see people stage diving off. That was you. To
that was,
describe you in a phrase would be psyched that someone's stage diving at one of your shows. That was sort of
I wish I could go back and shake that young man, some sense into him. But yeah, that was great, man. That was great. Something I had another thought. I just lost it. But for me, and I think you feel the same way. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what your favorite rooms are to see. But for me, the Vanguard, Village Vanguard, is untouchable. It's the best.
that's what I thought you'd say. Yeah, I mean it really is. It's something about certainly you walk in a room and there's magic and that's the room, and it's not like it's the acoustics are fine and everything, but you just walk in there, you're like you know that the things that happen there definitely happen there, all those recordings,
Right?
and those things are still happening there. It's a magical spot.
And it's so cool. I always love to, most venues have like a back entrance for the artist or something. There's none of that there. Like, Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, they all walk down that stairway, Miles, like
Yeah,
all these.
I mean, I use the bathroom there, and I'm like, this is the same plumbing that John Coltrane urinated in, and that's means something to me. I mean, it's that magical.
That's right. That means you're friends. That means that you can introduce yourself to like his son.
Yeah, exactly. One more song, and then we'll quit. What do you think?
That's great.
All right.
Let's do it. How about a Wolf song?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Let's see what I can do here.
Well, that was fantastic. I'm calling that Lone Wolf.
Lone
There you
Wolf.
go.
There it is.
Well, Scott, that was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to hit the other topics next time. No, really, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. That was great. Great catching up with you. I'm sure everyone loved hearing all those amazing stories and insights. Follow us on Freaks Action Network. Scott, I hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Yes, I hope so. Thanks so much for having me. And really, the cause is above and beyond that you guys are standing for. So thank you from musicians everywhere. Thank you.
Our pleasure. I'm going to